You're listening to Finding Your Genius Zone with Dirk Nevelle. With the help of successful individuals across industries, Dirk breaks down the unknown parts of every vocation while highlighting the importance of finding a career where you can leverage your natural skills, passions, and interests. Now here's your host, Dirk Nevelle.
Hello, everyone. This is Dirk Nevelle. Welcome to my podcast. I appreciate you taking the time. I have on with me Stephanie Wall, and I was excited to have Stephanie on because she does something different, and I don't really know anybody in her career route or her business. And I was talking to my wife about it, and I think it's a very interesting niche, and there's probably a lot of things that you don't know about, like behind the scenes, that go into making a job like this successful. So I'm going to let her elaborate and articulate that. But real quick, I know Stephanie, our kids are friends. They played football together for years. I know Stephanie's husband, Brian, and just a really, really cool family that we've enjoyed getting to know, and just a lot of good energy. And I was excited to have her on. So I appreciate you coming aboard.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So let's do this. I know that there's two jobs that you have, and we'll get into both, but let's start with the flower business. And, talk to us, like, if you met somebody on the street and they ask you what you did, how would you answer that question?
That I am a home-based florist. And like you said, I have two jobs right now, but I always will tell people that I'm a florist.
Yeah. So where did that, okay, so I'm going to get into the weeds on some of the things that people, when they think of flowers, they think of beauty and creativity and all that. But I know there's a lot that goes into making the business successful. But just walk me through kind of why do you gravitate towards flowers? Was this just something that you've always loved?
I have always loved flowers. I've always loved nature. As a little girl, I would, play in my grandma's garden and cut flowers and make little arrangements. And I'm also a very creative person. I have to have a creative outlet or I will lose my mind. And so it was kind of I had two boys that were little, and I was working for my mom, working from her home. And I had said to my husband, Brian, like, I need something. And like, I wonder if I could be a florist. It kind of was just that, I wonder if that's something that I could do. And he actually signed me up to attend flower school for a Christmas present. And so I started doing classes. They were all online because the school is based out of Portland, and we lived in Las Vegas at the time. And I, went down to the flower shop that was closest to us and basically asked, like, hey, can I buy like your almost dead flowers to use for my classes? And then she called me the day before Valentine's Day and asked if I wanted to come help. And I was like, yeah, of course. Little did I know, it would be a 48-hour process of us sleeping on the floor. And it was a pretty crazy, jump into this whole florist world. But I love being able to be creative, and taking people's ideas and turning them into reality.
Yeah. So we'll get into like the creative. What I find really interesting in careers like yours is there's a creative side to it, but there also has to be a business side and skill sets. And sometimes the skill sets, someone might be super creative and not so good on the business stuff. We'll get into that. But how long have you been doing this for?
12 years.
Okay. So the classes, I'm just curious. I've never heard of flower classes. So was this curriculum based off of how to organize, how to cut, how to keep them fresh?
Yep, everything. It's Florist Design Institute.
Okay.
That is based out of Portland. And so because I, lived out of state, they sent me DVDs, they sent me supplies. So each DVD would be a assignment, basically. And so they're teaching you the rules of design, which I would say a lot of people have kind of gotten away from, like the stereotypical, rules of design. But it's good to have that as a base of understanding lines and understanding, how to work in certain containers and stuff like that.
So like even colors and layers, like how you structure. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
So 12 years ago, you said 13 years ago?
Yeah. Xavier, my little guy was 1. It was his first Christmas.
And X-Man's not so little anymore.
No, he's not.
He's one of the coolest kids I know. He's buddies with my son, and he's just that kid that everyone loves. He'll probably be class president at Mount Si here when he's older, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's a good one.
He is a good one. Okay, so I'm curious, like some of these conversations just happen organically, but I'm thinking about you getting into this. Prior to that, were you in the dentist's office working?
No. So when I lived in Vegas, I worked for my mom. I was her office manager. And so that's like my other side of me is being an office manager. And I've done that for years and years and years. So I was working for her, raising 2 little boys, and did school, worked at the flower shop down there. And then once we moved back up to Washington, it was kind of, hey, will you make me an arrangement for my mom? I need a birthday arrangement. And I didn't have a space at that point. So it was just, buying flowers at the grocery store and doing it in the kitchen. And then I did a friend's wedding, and then it kind of just snowballed from there. I finally was able to 5 years ago build out a shop, and I have running water and fridges, and when we first kind of got up here, I was in the basement, and then moved into the empty garage, and then built out the shop. So it kind of evolved on its own as I was getting busier and, had big weddings to do and all of that.
So, okay. So totally jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm curious on is like, okay, so we have an audience that's trying to figure out what the heck they want to do. And they're tuning in because they have interests in your profession and what you're doing in your career. Mm-hmm. But do you remember the feeling like, this is what I want people to recognize. Like, so you talk about being a younger girl and playing flowers, and the creativity and the beauty of flowers and the feeling of what, it might give somebody when you give them flowers. It's hard. I'm probably hard to communicate that to some people who don't really care about it, but for some people who love it, it means a lot. Do you remember when Brian set you up for this class, like now you're doing some stuff that is like, you're passionate about? Did it lift you? Did it change you as a mom? Did it change you as a friend? Like, was it like life changing, or was it, did it take a while to really sink in?
I would say that it definitely made me feel more alive, because at that point in my life, I was just a mom and home and taking care of littles, and it gave me something to be excited about. Yeah. And it worked out. Things happen for a reason. And the flower shop that I ended up going to that was close to our home, Corey Lou, she's still one of my very best friends, owned the flower shop. And it's kind of funny when I was thinking about walking into a flower shop and asking the owner, can I come sit in the corner and just kind of like watch you? I had this vision of this older woman for whatever reason. And Corey Lou walked out of the back, and she's beautiful, and this hippie woman just like me. And like, we just connected. And that was the start of it all. And I felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's a perfect situation.
Yeah. I mean, when you say the word alive, I mean, that's what I want people to feel like. That's, I mean, this podcast it's a passion project for me, but I want people to feel alive. And I think you feel alive when you find yourself in a career that allows you to leverage your natural passions and interests and skills. So you got into this, and then you kind of started going along, and we talked a little bit about this before I hit record, but when creativity meets business, or profitability and all that, the skill sets sometimes are different. So was there any struggles like you're super creative, right, on the flower side, but what is it like? What are the things behind the scenes that, let's just say there's another hippie type girl that's just like you, 24 years old, and she wants to do what you're doing. Like, what would you tell her that you've learned? Because having the creative side can only get you so far. What is it about the business that people don't know?
And I would say that my office manager background has definitely helped, because I'm very organized. I know how to manage my time really well. And that's a huge part of it. Just like you said, of course, creativity and vision are a big part, but you have to be able to be really organized in the back end when you're doing proposals. You're talking to brides, you're talking to big venues, math is, I think most people don't really think about how much math goes into being a florist. But when you're having to put together a proposal for a wedding and you're literally making a recipe for, okay, this bouquet is going to have this many flowers in it and a bunch has this many flowers in it, it's a huge math equation, and trying to figure out also somebody's budget and what you can do wholesale wise and what that's going to equate to for retail.
So I'm guessing like maybe at times in the beginning, different flowers cost different amounts, right?
Yeah.
And so you might have lost money on a couple of deals because you didn't price it right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's good. That's good learning. I mean, I've lost deals too when I messed up on, and I've never done it. I mean, you learn not to do it again, hopefully.
Right.
What is it? Okay. So, but like, walk me through a day, like, some of the things that are popping in, like, I'm curious, like, is it good to spread your clientele out between big venues, smaller, or instead of like trying to hit home runs and have huge clients where like it just consumes you? Do you have a setup where it's, do you have a good mix of clientele? Is that a good way to go? Or do you recommend, are there niches like weddings, birthdays? I mean, what do you think about, like, in terms of, okay, people want flowers. Do you try to just be somebody to everyone, or do you try to define it and be a little unique?
Well, I definitely think that it depends on really what you want to do with your business. I do a lot of daily deliveries. I do, holidays, obviously, and then also weddings. Where we live, we have a very short window for wedding season. So, it's really only 3, maybe 4 months out of the year. So that would also depend, like if you live in a warmer area, your wedding season can be all year if you really wanted it to be. Amount of time that goes into weddings, you have to be able to manage. And also, like, because it's just me on a normal daily basis, right? So, and I'm working on weddings on my own most of the time. I have people that, definitely help, friends and family if I need it. But I would say find something that you like doing. Some people don't like doing weddings, and they just want to do big events at, casinos or big hotels and make a really good profit, and only do that every once in a while. And then do, daily deliveries to kind of supplement that income that needs to be coming in throughout the year.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking like geography, being in Seattle with our climate, and you're right, only so many months people would have a wedding here versus Arizona or California. And then I don't know if like certain flowers, you have to be selective based off geography, like certain flowers do better here than other climates. And then when you talk about weddings, like, I guess just to be honest, off the cuff, I'm like, that would be stressful because you're dealing with, I just remember the stress of coordinating a wedding and trying to be perfect. It's like you have to bring that stress on. There's a lot of pressure, which I guess comes with the job, but you have to also be cognitive of your clientele and the mindset that they're in. So if it's an everyday thing, chill, like a restaurant, whatever, you might be dealing with more of a casual situation versus, red alert, for a wedding. I don't know, do you have a favorite type of venue, or do you just like to mix it up and do them all?
I like to mix it up and do them all because it keeps it fresh and different. And every location is going to have, different options of, is it inside of a barn, and what can I do to make this barn look awesome? Is it, a cabin out in the woods that people have rented? Is it, and they want to be next to the river. So we have to kind of, figure that out. Transportation also is a huge thing to bigger venues and doing bigger weddings. Right now, I don't have a delivery van, and so we use everybody's cars. And so hopefully, that's something that I can obtain in the future to make things a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just remembering when I've bought from you, I think Brian delivered a couple of times. You have too. So in any business, like, again, I'm going into the mind of somebody that's interested in what you do, and like, to scale your business, I mean, I think it would be important to kind of like, okay, are you getting into the business because you love the experience of flowers and the beauty, or are you trying to build, a really big machine or a profitable? I would think that, like inventory, like you have a shelf life, right? So you have to be able to get inventory and deliver, but that inventory only lives so long. So can you talk to me a little bit? I mean, am I overdoing it on that, or is that an issue?
Oh, it's definitely an issue. It's what I think about all the time. And when do I order? How soon can I start prepping for this wedding or event or a holiday even? If you're doing, vased arrangements, you're going to cut the flowers and they're going to be in water, so they'll be fine at that point. But you always want to give people the freshest product that you can. Yeah. And so really you only have a couple of days to prepare and get ready. If I have a Saturday wedding, I pick up the flowers on a Thursday most of the time. And so I'm working, 14, 16, 18 hours a day, depending on the wedding, to make sure that I can get everything done in those 2 days, and that it's, very fresh and everything's happy when I deliver the wedding.
And so if you pick those flowers up on a Thursday, when are you actually ordering them?
Usually about 2.5 to 3 weeks ahead of time. That's kind of the main time frame that I like to be in. And it also depends on if there's something really, really specific that a bride wants. I might have to order it a month in advance to get that really specific flower. Because they're flown in, like where we live, they're flown in mostly from California, South America. And so and sometimes you never really know what's going to come. I might order a flower a month ahead of time and it doesn't come, or it comes in a different color, or, it's not available at that point. So that's another aspect. People think, well, I want this flower for my wedding. Well, it might not be available. So it's my job to say, okay, this is something that is similar and will give you the same look. Or what you want is really, really expensive. I can do this and stay in your budget, but still give you the look and the feel that you want.
So, or it comes in and it doesn't look very good.
And it's dead. That's happened.
Too bad there's not a market for dead flowers.
Right?
Right.
That would be nice.
Yeah, no, honestly, I'm just listening. It feels stressful.
It is pretty stressful, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think that, like what you had said before, people go, oh, well, you get to play with flowers all day. That's not the reality of everything that goes on behind the scenes. And sure, I get to be around pretty flowers and plants and it smells good. And, that whole aspect of it. And that's why I said some people don't like doing weddings, because it's really stressful, not only working with the bride and the groom, but a lot of times like the mother of the bride or the mother of the groom, and they all have their own wants and opinions. And so it's, and you want to make it perfect for them. It's their special day. And so that it is definitely a stressful job.
Is there anything else about, like, apart from the obvious, anything else that comes with the job that, like, oh my God, I didn't see this coming? Like, maybe it's the drama or the venting of stress on you from the mother-in-law, or, I mean, is there a surprise? I mean, people Google, they interview people, they get an idea what they think the job's about. So I'm really after, like, those things that aren't so crystal clear, like, wow, I didn't know that was part of the gig. Is there anything else you can think of?
I would say the amount of standing that it takes to be a florist. You are on your feet all day and many hours. You don't get to sit down and eat. You eat at your work table as you're making arrangements. And of course, that's not like an everyday thing, but when you are working on a bigger project, you don't get to take time to do those things. And that's a big part of a lot of things that a lot of florists talk about is self-care during wedding season. Because your hands hurt, your back hurts, your neck hurts, your feet hurt. And so really taking care of yourself during those times is a big deal.
Like drinking good whiskey.
Yes.
Not bad whiskey. Of course.
Always good whiskey.
So the other thing too, is you have to have the right support system. I mean, I know you're super close with your mom and stepdad, and Brian is a really great husband, and your kids are amazing. But like, this would be a hard gig. I mean, think about it. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people. But like, when it's crunch time, like I had a nurse on yesterday. You're on, and then you got family life, and then life happens, and your son gets hurt, or he's got to go to football or whatever. But like, you have to have the right support system around you, I think, to be successful.
I couldn't do what I do without my people. It's just, you have to have exactly what you said. You have to have a support team. And I'm very blessed with the people that I'm surrounded with. I think that the big project that I did last year.
Yeah, I didn't know how much you wanted to get into that, but I mean, let me set it up. And if you do, if you don't, that's cool. But like, like in a lot of, I always think of, like, I'm a sports guy. So like in a lot of companies, we're all selling something, a product or a service, ourselves, whatever. But like, like in my job, I have to hit a lot of singles, meaning I need to do a lot of loans to make money. It's a volume game. Like, some people think of a florist as maybe it's just a lot of volume to do really well. But then like that experience that you just brought up, which you can elaborate on, sometimes you hit a home run, like you get a really cool opportunity that is a big deal. So I guess my question is if you want to talk about that or not, but it's not always just little bouquets, one-off deals. Like it could be a wedding that has a ton of bouquets, or it could be, a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah. I was very surprised that I was able to get that opportunity, and very excited and very nervous when I got that first phone call. And kind of why I'm talking about specifically the support that, we all need, regardless of what we do as a profession. But as a person that I usually just am alone in my shop, with this opportunity to do the Netflix show, my first panic was, I can't do this alone. Like, there's no way that I can do this big of a project all by myself. And that was scary, and thinking, okay, how do I make this happen? And who do I need to help me? And, my family and friends are amazing and supportive, but they're not designers. And I needed other people who I could say, okay, this is the recipe for this arrangement, and know that they would be able to do it without me stressing out about it. And so again, with the show, there's moments of chaos and panic, and, a big windstorm happened, and I had to call Brian and say, I need like 15 people here at 6 a.m. tomorrow so that we can move everything around. It was 11 o'clock at night at that point. And our community and our friends and our family all came and helped and, made it happen. And that was really awesome.
Would you do another one of those gigs, or was it too much?
Tomorrow. Like, absolutely. I had so much fun, and yes, it was stressful, but it also made me feel like I was growing and I was doing something that I didn't at first have the confidence in myself to do it. And I think that when you're faced with an opportunity to do something that makes you scared, once you get on the other side of that, is such a good feeling. Like, yeah, I did that, and I made that happen. And look, I can do that, which was really cool.
Yeah, no, I think fear gets in a lot of way, in the way a lot. I mean, I can relate it. It's slowed me down, but sometimes the reality of not trying is worse than the fear of failing. It's like, for me, I'd rather not have the regret of not trying versus falling on my face. As far as the industry, like, okay, so you've explained it, what you do, but like, are there different levels of like getting into the flower business? I mean, like, I'm thinking, okay, designer, you can run your own business, you can be a wholesaler. You can, I mean, I'm guessing there's an industry behind the seeds, cultivate.
You can grow flowers. There's all different aspects of it. And if you, like me, I don't own a brick and mortar flower shop. I have a home-based floral shop. So those are two big different venues or things realities in itself.
Yeah.
Yes, you can grow flowers. You can help in the business aspect of a flower shop. Like, maybe you're not a super creative person, but you love the idea of being around flowers and, being in that type of a work environment, because it's fun, but I would say a good thing for someone who is kind of interested in the field is go and find a flower shop that's close by you. And like I did, go introduce yourself and just say, hey, I'm kind of thinking that I might want to learn a little bit more about your profession. And, if somebody came to me with that question, I would love to show them the reality of being a florist.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting because, like, okay, so maybe somebody's watching this and like, oh, this is stressful, and maybe they don't like stress, but like, there's different ways to enter in the game. And like, what I've noticed, a lot of my podcast guests who own their business, everybody thinks they want to be the boss and run their own show, and they think there's more income, and sometimes there is, but a lot of times the bosses are the last ones to eat, especially if you have a company or people underneath you. Mm-hmm. So it's good to think about, you might love the flower business, but you might hate being a flower owner. Maybe you'd be really happy in, just doing being a designer in a flower. So there's different areas. Is there anything, like, let's just say X man came out of college and wanted to be the flower guy, the king of, the Pacific Northwest. Like, is there any words of caution that you would throw at somebody that thinks they're gung ho about getting into the business? They want to own their own shop. like, what would you tell them, not to push them away, but just to say, make sure they're super clear on what they're getting themselves into?
Just the amount of work that it takes. And if you're not willing to be up all hours of the night sometimes and working, hours and hours on proposals and going out and meeting venue owners or, owners of restaurants or, wherever, if you wanted to do like a weekly arrangement, let's say at a business. So I think that communication is really important, and being able to present what's in your mind to someone else that has something, a vision in their mind, and being able to communicate that, and also the reality and the realistic expectations.
Yeah. And also being like listening, because like you have a creative talent, like a chef or photographer or whatever. But sometimes it's not about you. It's like you have an idea, you have an opinion, but sometimes a client might really want a look that you don't agree with. So I think that the thing about that's coming out right now is even having a creative talent and interest in flowers, you also have to sell yourself. So like if I'm hiring you and you are working out of your home, like I'm wondering, okay, is this going to be a disaster? Can you deliver? And like, do I trust you? And do you feel credible? And are you, so you have to have the social skills too, I think, to sell yourself, because like the reality TV show that you were involved with, I mean, they probably had a lot of options and they chose you. And I'm sure a lot of them, the people were good at design, but maybe it came down to you and the likability and just your personality.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it and you're right. You are selling yourself, and because they have plenty of options, right? So they can see my work. And, I try to just get to know them on a personal level before we do proposal and all of that. So in my phone calls with them, I just kind of sit and chat and get to know them a little bit. And then we go into what they want and what they're looking for.
The other thing about you that I think is interesting for the audience is, okay, so you have two jobs and you're working hard. So you have one job and I'm sure you're very good at it. But it's helping pay the bills and providing for the family, but it's also, and then you do your passion job. So I think it's good for people to realize that sometimes you might not just jump into your passion. You might have to do something else that gives you the freedom to pursue your passion. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of young people, I mean, in the perfect world, you jump right into your passion, which is a question I'm going to have here in a second for you. But sometimes you have to pay your dues, and, maybe eventually things take off and you have one job and it's all about flowers. I don't know what your future is or what you want to do, but I think that's really important for people to see. If you were to go back in time, you grew up, you didn't grow up with Brian, did you? Or did you go to high school in Leavenworth?
Yeah. Okay. I've known Brian since I was like 8 years old.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then what did you do after high school in Leavenworth?
I actually moved from Leavenworth and lived in Wenatchee for a little bit. I worked at a clothing store. I worked at Quiznos. I graduated when I was 17. So at that point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it was just taking a job that, I could get and make money. I've lived on my own since I was 16. And so I needed to have a job and I needed to have money. And then I moved over with Brian in Ellensburg for a little bit. And then once we moved down to Vegas, life threw us a curveball and we had Damien, and I worked for my mom.
Cool. And
Yeah.
so survival, right? You had to get a job, you had to survive, pay the bills, take care of yourself. But like, can you give any advice, like to say a younger woman or a girl in high school or whatever? Like, I understand the reality of surviving and getting a job and maybe doing whatever you got to do, but also in terms of trying to explore what's innate inside you and trying to kind of like choose a profession more strategically that's geared around who you are and a profession that you would enjoy and love and be good at. Any advice you would give to somebody kind of struggling, or maybe is in a situation that they're working at Quiznos or somewhere else, but they have a dream of doing something like you, but they feel stuck?
I would say do your research. And things like this are really helpful because you can actually listen to and learn from somebody who's done something that you might be interested in. And so I think this is really awesome. Look into it. The resources that we have now are amazing. And find something that, and this is what I tell my boys, find something that you are passionate about, that, every day is not going to be perfect and it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows every day. But if you can find something that you're passionate about and you get to go to work and enjoy what you do and make money, like that's the dream, right? I would say do a pro and con list. Like, this is what I don't like about what I'm doing right now. And what would it be that what do I like to do? And then kind of narrow that down and what job or what profession fits some of those, boxes.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, the obvious stuff that's right in front of your face, like, how is Dirk different than Brian or different than whatever? Like, I don't think people think that way when it comes time to choosing a career. Like, I don't think people think about how I'm different. I mean, some do. Some know exactly what, they want to get right into something super unique. Right. But I think when you write down the list of what you like, but you also got to understand that it's hard to run a race that you really don't want to win. So when you are into what you do, like, I see people all the time that just separate themselves from the pack. And it's not about money or fame or anything like that, but it's just about when you are genuinely enthusiastic about what you're doing, you can't fake it. And I see people faking it. And that's what the whole Genius Zone is about. It's not about being the best in the world at what you do. It's just about sinking into who you are and leveraging that in a career. So I see you doing that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. And I don't really know anybody in your business. And I just think it's a cool niche. And I know it's not easy, but I think you shared a lot of really good information about it. If you, one of the other questions I was going to ask is if you could just, like, maybe you can't be in the flower business, is there a dream job? I like to ask this question so the audience can get to know somebody, and sometimes they're surprised, but is there something that you would love to do that, like, is a fantasy land type career that, if you couldn't be in the flower business?
That's a really good question. I have always been interested in horticulture and, of course that, goes back to plants, but maybe learning a little bit more environmentally about, plants and how we can use them for our benefit. I love medicinal plants and learning how to use those in our daily lives and how they can benefit us. I have books and books and books on that subject. Have I ever really dove into that as much as I've wanted to? No, but I would love to be able to have more knowledge in that aspect. I don't know how I would use that as a profession, maybe make people tinctures or, whatever. But that's always been something that I've been really interested in.
So I don't know, like, this is a subject that I'm actually really, and I have a guest that I'm going to be bringing on. So like, I'm really interested in medicine journeys. And are we talking the same language, or are you talking something about more like health and wellness?
Both.
Okay. So like, this person does ayahuasca journeys for people, okay, and MDMA journeys. And I think it's a really interesting career, where they help people, like they allow them to put their ego in the corner and just get really real. And I know with PTSD and, it's a fascinating area that I'm interested in as well.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating about it is, like, ayahuasca is, it's two plants that are, I think, like 1,000 miles away from each other. But when you combine them, it creates this potion, or whatever you want to say. But like, I wonder, like, how the heck did they,
how did they figure that out?
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm blown away by it. There's a great Netflix on the different, there's modalities and different medicines, people, peyote and whatever. And it's
mushrooms, all of that.
Yeah, I find it really fascinating. Anything that you feel compelled to say before we wrap this up, like on the tip of your tongue, as far as, again, this is advice, this is offering advice to hopefully help people choose better lives in their careers. Is there anything that I didn't ask or that you feel compelled to say?
I would just say I really understand choosing what you want to do for the rest of your life. Like, that's a scary thing. Damien's leaving for college here in the next few months. And he's like, how do I, as a 17-year-old, pick what I want to do? I don't even know how to be an adult yet. How am I supposed to choose what I want to do for the rest of my life? And I think that it's a really important thing, especially for young people, to understand it doesn't have to be a lifetime thing, right? Like, I'm almost 40 and, I haven't been doing this my whole life. I didn't know when I was 17 that I wanted to be a florist, but I think that as we learn about ourselves and, we understand what we are passionate about and what we're good at and what we enjoy, that can always morph into something else. Like, I never really thought that I would have my own flower shop and I would be working, 2 full-time jobs and doing what I'm doing right now. But I think that the doors are opened for us and we have a guide. And if you do put your heart and soul into something, good things are going to happen. And it's okay to not know what that might be. And I don't know, what this journey is going to lead me on in the next couple of years, but I love what I do. And I think that passion shows as well to people that see, what you do. And so just ride it out and see, where it takes you.
Yeah. I think, that's interesting, because a lot of times I'm thinking about this podcast is going to help make the decision, but I think what you bring up is important, because not everybody's going to know. It's like dating. Sometimes it might take a few dates to figure out who you like to be with. Yeah. So, but pay attention to who you are and what makes you unique. Right. And if you're a total introvert and you get uncomfortable around people, probably shouldn't go into sales or whatever, a people business. So just be strategic about it. And, your husband always gives me crap because I'm a big meditator and I've been doing that for a long time now. And, when you can getting a little deep, but when you get out of your head and into your heart and you slow down your brainwave frequency, and it allows you to and when you think about, my advice too is to manifest and really, create that vision of the future and let your body feel the emotion of it, whether it's happened or not. And I'm a big believer in you creating your future. And I think you are too, even though your husband gives me a hard time about that stuff.
Mhm.
But anyway, thank you for coming on. I really
Thanks for having
appreciate
me.
it. You were great. And, at the end of the day, I think this podcast really helped people understand your career and the flower business a lot better.
Awesome. Thanks
Cool.
for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.